we have my new friend. I say this because we did just meet the other day. Niyi Adeogun is a beautiful mixed media artist. And when I say beautiful, I mean I've never met someone who can mix geometry and poetry and color to create illustrations that are beyond just logos and branding. He does those too, so if you need that for your business, please check out his website. But the way that he creates his work, I think, is what makes him such a unique addition to this panel. So please clap your hands for my new friend, Niyi Adeogun. Next, who will be joining us this evening is Kierrah Celeste. I said it took me a second to say Kierrah because everyone calls her Kiki, and I told her that I was going to actually pronounce her actual name one good time before I went back to calling her Kiki. But if you haven't had the pleasure of hearing Kiki live, I say that she is one of the most didactic musicians that I've seen on the island yet. If you have not caught the Confederation Centre of the Arts video on Facebook from August of 2020, Kierrah brought New York jazz and scat to the streets of PEI in a way that we have never seen before. So it is my pleasure and honor to welcome Kierrah to the stage. Next, we have Schroeter, who will be joining us on the stage. To call him a media artist and a graphic designer is belittling. This man's writing is something to be seen. And what Richard brings to this panel and to this conversation is just the general decades of wisdom that he possesses, and his just enthusiasm for technology and education. I'm so excited to share him with you. Folks, it's Richard. Last in person, and certainly not least, Dawn is one of the top 30 under 30 in PEI, in my opinion. This woman is a dancer, a choreographer, a business owner. Like, there is nothing I don't think she can't do. She will not say she's a director, but I will. And she's just one of those fascinating human beings that we are all grateful to have in PEI, because a talent like Dawn's could be successful anywhere, and she chooses to be in PEI and to share that with us. And so I personally appreciate that. Please welcome Dawn Ward, folks. Later we will be hearing from Alana Hibbert. She is unfortunately in BC, lame, but she will be delivering some messages to us towards the end of the evening. But we're going to just have a chat first with everybody here, and then we'll hear from Alana. So I'm going to ask the first question because I can already tell that everyone's nervous. I'm sorry, it's my fault. So I just want to know a little bit about you folks' story. So whoever wants to go first, feel free to go first. But you all cover a broad array of different skills and skill sets. And so I just want to hear from you about your experience in your field here in PEI.
Yes, I'll go first. Hi, my name is Niyi Adeogun. You can call me Niyi. That's Niyi. So, how will I start? So, I started dabbling in visual arts in 2015. Yeah, towards the end of 2015, I wanted to start a clothing line back in Nigeria. So, that was what made me get into graphic design. So, long story short, it wasn't successful. And then I was moving to PEI for school in 2016. And from there, I began to explore visual arts and just creative directing. So what I was studying in school wasn't really graphic design or visual arts related, but it was more on the engineering side of things, right? That is something that I also have interest in. I'm interested in everything design. So that's why, like, you know, she mentioned poetry and all this other stuff. Like, those are stuff that interests me. And I try to use that. I guess I try to use different expressions to communicate, you know, my message or communicate my stories, right? So, yeah, so that's kind of like a backstory on what I do, and yeah, I don't know if I need to get more into details.
That's a good start. That's a good start. Let's go next.
I'll go next. So, you guys know that, well, some of you may know that I'm a singer, I'm a performer on the island, and I've been singing since I could talk, been getting on my family's nerves since 1995, and I always knew that I was going to be a performer, I was going to be a singer, I was going to be an artist, and I always had my mind set on Berklee College of Music. And then when I found out how much the tuition was, my family was like, whoa, wait a second, pause, what am I gonna do? And then I found out about PEI and SoCo's music performance program has a Berklee Pathway program. So I was just like, okay, cool, I can get like the education, but like literally for like a fourth of the price of the tuition at Berklee College of Music in Boston. And with performing here and finding like my collective in the band that I perform with, that's honestly what has made me stay. Like meeting everybody within the community. It's made me stay and progress in ways that have like that I wouldn't have seen if I was home. So yeah.
Thanks. Richard, since we're going down the line.
Hello, everyone. My name is Richard Schroeter, and Evelyn is right, I am ancient, especially compared to everybody else. And it's not lost on me, actually, that 30 years ago when I would have been 20, nice. This stage might only have me here, and to see this people of color with success, because I don't actually see a lot of people of color in general in my life being here. It's fantastic. It's good that I can see that in my waning years. But I was born in Toronto. My father was from Jamaica, and my mother was from here. And eventually we came back here. Grade 12, not grade 12, what do they call that? Kindergarten, the opposite of grade 12. And my artistic endeavors really started at a very young age through my mother, who taught me how to read before kindergarten and taught me how to draw. And I sort of been expanding on that and adding, to those skill sets because of that foundation. So yeah.
Thanks, Richard.
Good.
First of all, when I was growing up, I thought I was going to be a cardiologist. So we took a whole different direction.
I don't know if this is COVID friendly. Is this close as this okay? I'm only off the stage because if you've never seen Dawn dance, the idea of her being a cardiologist just seems like a real waste of a skill set in the time. I'm sorry. Okay. I didn't mean to be rude. Please continue. I'll behave.
But yeah, like my parents were very hesitant to put me in dance when I was younger because my sister did dance and it didn't really work out in the end. She didn't like it anymore, so my mother was like, well, I'm not gonna waste money twice. So it took some convincing at 3 years old to make her take me to top. But yeah, I've been going to dance and loving dance ever since I was 3 years old, and eventually I realized that I wanted to be a teacher. I think from 5 years old I knew I wanted to be a teacher. So I used to boss people around all the time, and I started to create at 7 years old. And at first I was like, okay, this is mediocre work, but I still got the support and I still got people to enjoy it. So
at 7, you decided that your work was subpar. You were 7.
it's a struggle.
Oh, not good enough. Like, okay.
Eventually, when I got my parents on board with the whole theater and dance, because at first it was dance that took convincing, and then when I told my parents I wanted to go to college to do theater, like my father was like, are you serious? Or, because they were, in that time, they didn't think that you could make money from something like that, or they just were one of those people where like, you need to be a doctor or a lawyer or anything like that. But I ignored all of the advice I was getting from anybody, and I was like, this is what I want to do, and I want to go to PEI. And my father was like, okay, I just don't know where this is on the map, but if you can show me where it is, then I'll help you get there. So before I came to PEI, I went to New York to do a couple summer intensives, and then I went to Trinidad to get my African education certification. And that's where I learned that I had a love for Afro-Jazz. So when I moved to PEI, I did the theater program, and I brought my Afro-Caribbean and Afro-Jazz movement here. And then I did the dance program, went to Acadia, did some English literature just to make my mom happy, so that if something was to happen to my legs, she knew I had a backup plan. And, yeah, I ended up dropping out of that anyway, but came back to PEI.
Far from a cardiologist, folks. We're far from a cardiologist.
Very far. Came back to PEI and came back to Holland College to continue to coach the dance team. And ever since then, that's just been my life. Dance team. And then when my partner moved here, we continued with Exclusive Crew. And that's when we knew that we just love to bring communities together with dance. Like, it just didn't matter anybody's classical background or training background. We just wanted to bring different individuals together and just have a good time with dance. So that's what my focus has been since I've been here. And now I'm working for the Confed, new associate artistic director. So that's a new task to add to my life. And then on top of that, being a parent. So let's see how this goes.
So I appreciate each of you kind of giving us a background of how, PEI, and some of us decided that PEI was going to be a place for us to really explore our talents and to have access to the most resources. Have you found that ideal is still true for you? Kierrah, your eyebrows, so I'm gonna have you go first. Because I said that and I watched them say, I don't know, maybe.
Well, as far as access to resources, being an artist, a working artist here, as opposed to back at home, there's definitely more opportunities here. Like, coming from upstate New York, I'm from Syracuse, New York. With the city vibe, the energy, it's so easy to just be a starving artist there, and I knew I didn't want to starve. So I was like, where can I go where I can grow and also to find opportunity. And I do think that there are opportunities here, but I think that there could be more, for sure.
Okay.
I'll go. Well, I think for me, PEI wasn't really a choice. It wasn't really a choice in the sense that, because I grew up and was born and raised in Nigeria, so the goal was to get out of the country, any means necessary, right? So I remember applying to a bunch of schools in the States and Canada, and PEI was not even on my list, but I think we did it through an agent, and I got an email saying, oh, you got accepted, and I was like, okay, that's all, just go, right? So I think for me, being raised in Nigeria, there's this African mentality or Nigerian mentality where whatever opportunity you're presented with, you have to succeed regardless. You can't. There's no room for failure, right? There's no room for failure as a Nigerian. So coming here, I think I'd come with that mindset of okay, even though things may not be the best, whatever opportunity I'm being presented with, I just have to make the best out of it. I think in general, my experience in PEI or in Charlottetown in the art space has been good. I think a lot of people have been very receptive to what I do, because this was the first place I put myself out there as an artist. So getting that support initially was oh, okay, this is pretty dope, and that encouraged me to continue. And yeah.
Richard, can you go next, just because you left PEI and chose to come back to PEI?
Well, for me, at that young, tender age that I barely remember, the resources weren't really here, right? And I had to leave for that education. And I got a lot of education right across the country. But the goal was always to come back to PEI, because PEI, for some reason, really felt like I could do a lot here, I could be bigger here than, say, Toronto. I always wanted to bring something back. I'm glad to see once again that some of these resources are here now, because at that time they just weren't. What else I can say about that?
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But it's all been about education. Like, as much as when I finished high school, I thought I was done. But I can't think of a time or a year, or even, especially now, where you can literally learn anything online, where I've stopped training myself in something.
Makes sense. I can see that. Doc, do you want to add anything?
I think I would agree with the fact that, when you move from another country, you have to succeed by any means necessary. And I think when Holland College came to Freeport, Bahamas, they recruited a bunch of individuals because they wanted more diversity in the arts community. And I think that was one of the best decisions to come to PEI because it's such a small environment. I felt that I got the attention that I needed. Mm-hmm. I got that nitpickiness, and I got, teachers specifically telling me what I needed to work on because the community was small enough. So I felt like that gave me what I needed to move forward with just my training. And like you said, you never really stop training, right? So I feel like in PEI, because the community is so small, there are the resources that you need to continue to train, and there are the resources that you need to feel supported if you decide to branch off to do what you need to do.
So it's interesting. I also am not originally from PEI, and so hearing these stories really resonates with my experiences as well. And I find that PEI is an extremely diverse place, just based on this room and based on the stage. And I'm finding, though, that there seems to be a bit of a hesitation in everybody's tone. And I am going to call you out because I've had independent conversations with all of you. And I want you to be honest. I feel like PEI is diverse. Do you find, though, that those opportunities that you mentioned are inclusive?
Yeah. To answer your question, I would say it's a yes and no question, right? I think for me, from my own perspective, because I'm an immigrant, it's a bit different. The opportunities that have been brought to my attention or I've seen, I've come across, and I qualified, like there was this particular one where they were specifically looking for, BIPOC artists or black artists or whatever. So I qualified for everything though. I met all the criteria. But then when you got to a point where it was like, okay, so do you have, a permanent residency or like or citizenship or something, like I got caught off from that opportunity. And there were a bunch of my other friends too that also creatives that applied, and because they weren't like that, they just cut them off, right? And knowing PEI, knowing how diverse PEI is, that already cuts a lot of people out of the picture, right? So, but eventually they did, because of the number of people that they released or they let go, they came back and were like, okay, let's actually make a change. Let's revisit our criteria, and they were able to like make some changes and accommodate some of us within the group. So I can definitely see some changes being made, but I wouldn't say like we're there yet. Like I think there's still growth.
Oh, absolutely.
I think as a kid, I might have been the first introduction to a lot of people as a black person. So it's good to see that there's more diversity now. But as a kid, I don't remember that at all. What I'll say is this: is that the different things that I do and that I've done, bigotry has never stopped me. Racism has, and I sort of I put those two things in different categories, where bigotry is in someone else's mind, and I can just keep doing what I do. It doesn't matter what people think. But it's when that turns into power. And some of those hurdles have been put, in front of me. Some of them I had to break through. Some of them I had to leave and go get more education so I could just set it up myself. But these days, I'm mostly a hermit, and I mostly do my own thing, and there's no one that really can tell me not to do something that I would listen to anyway. Well, except for my partner, who might tell me to do the dishes instead of a few things here and there. But yeah, so that it's in a way it's really like my mind is blown to hear someone say, "Oh, I'm coming to PI because it's so diverse," because I never really thought of it like that.
Yeah, I was talking to Alana when I did her conversation prior to her sitting in her video, and one of the things that she mentioned is that power dynamic. And she was saying that she felt that there are a lack of folks who work backstage for shows and who are in crew for shows because of that power dynamic that you just described. And so one of the things that I'm always intrigued by is how do we break down power dynamics even though somebody needs to be in charge. and so I know that for her, one of the barriers and one of the struggles that she identified specifically here is that kind of lack of understanding of power dynamics, the conversation around power dynamics. Kiki, were you going to say something?
No, I agree. I agree with what she said, but I think what she said to me about those barriers that I think that that Canadians they don't think about those kinds of things when you are coming here and you are applying for for grants at Music PEI or Skills PEI or Innovation PEI, all those. There are plenty of barriers that stop BIPOC people from that stop us from being just presented, being shown more within this community. And I think that's a big thing to that organizations should think about when trying to change the dynamic of the arts, of entertainment in all realms. So yeah.
Yeah, because right now there's not a direct immigration pathway, right? And so when you're coming in, you're looking to access resources. If one of the main criteria for accessing that grant happens to be your work permit number, your permanent residency number, or something like that, it becomes really embarrassing because you want to access it, you want to show your talent. And like Niyi was saying, all of your friends who were actively trying to contribute, and they couldn't because someone said, "Oh well, because you don't have this piece of paper, the work that you do no longer is valid for us." And that's hard to hear when you travel an ocean, you leave your family to be somewhere, and then someone says, "Nope, this piece of paper says you can't." That's tough. What are you gonna say, Don?
Yeah, there's definitely a fight, an extra fight or an extra box that we would have to tick off, and I find that, I respect the fact that these things were put into place for persons that live here, but at the same time, we live here as well, and we are just as much as residents as anybody else. We just have a different type of paperwork, and we come from a different country. But there definitely is a fight when it comes to wanting the same opportunities, because I find that, yes, me and my Canadian friend, we probably can audition for the same show, or we can apply for the same funding, but I probably have to do the most work to get that, you know what I mean? And it's not because it's on purpose, but it's just because PEI still has to learn to keep up with this new time, which is 2022, whereas most of the Black people on this island are immigrants. So now, as an island, they have to figure out a way to make sure that everything is accessible to all residents, not just permanent residents or Canadian citizens, but all residents, temporary residents, students, especially students, because there's nothing that's going to motivate them to stay and study if they know that after I graduate, what are the opportunities that I have? Do I have to go back to my country to get this funding? Or can I stay on this island and still be able to do what I came here for?
just, yeah, wow. I didn't even think of that particular piece. Like, yes, study here, but once you get your talent, once you get your education, go entertain somebody else, go take those skill sets somewhere else. No. Who does that? Like, I don't want to pay for something and then ship it somewhere else. Like, that doesn't make any sense. What are you gonna say, Kierrah?
Yeah, I was also gonna hop back to the power dynamic within, like, I can speak specifically to like my experience here, like being in school, also being like a Black woman from the States, like already getting like my own education, kind of like on my own, like culturally, just around family, around other musicians that I would be around, like back at home. There definitely is, I would definitely speak to like that elephant in the room for the power dynamic within like the music scene here, that there does need to be a shift with that as well, like as far as being an R&B artist not in an area where it's like a lot of people who are like producers or engineers. They are only like affluent, really much so with like Acadian like music, folky, country kind of music, and for people who are like really killing the game right now, like Vince the Messenger, TNA, Obembe, Lavender from Halifax, like people like that, we do need artists like that who are kind of like outside that realm. Like there's definitely like a power dynamic when we are going to organizers like I can only think of like music PI.
Yeah, when you're looking to access resources, you're looking to contact producers and they don't see the value in your music because it's not the music they do. The reality is, as an R&B artist, if you were looking for a producer who values R&B music, you're not finding them right now.
Yeah, and that's, I think that you guys could probably all like relate to this too, but like, you know, going to auditions, like having to take the extra initiatives that you have to do, like being an immigrant, or also just being in the skin that we're in. There, with that power dynamic comes like cultural like insensitivity that you could experience, and then having like experience after experience of feeling like you're being like stereotyped or you know, feeling those kinds of things in a work setting, and taking hit after hit could probably be a reason why people decide to quit.
I know as a young man, once again, that you know, the real difference for me was that I never got to live a Black culture. I grew up here, but I was still treated by some, you know, as the Black guy. So I never had the culture, and I never lived the culture. I had to study the culture when I left and learn what that was all about. So, you know, I don't have the same, once again, it's not the same drive. And it, you know, it must be, I think there must be a different kind of frustration for people who come and have that Black culture and that Black experience to come up to these hurdles. Then maybe those same hurdles that I would hit felt a little different for me. You know, as a kid, I just never understood why it was such a big issue. Things would just happen, or there would be things that I just wouldn't be allowed to do, and I didn't fully understand culturally why that was a thing until later on.
Well, that's kind of the gist of PEI, right? Like it's an interesting place because it is welcoming, it is open, but I feel like there is a lack of understanding of just how many barriers are in place, even though it is welcoming and even though it attempts to be open. And Don, you and I were talking about this when we were chatting about the dancers who you say are like, oh, I don't know if I can audition for this, and the singers that you work with. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I find that personally for like the dancers that I've worked with, because like I said, everything that me and my partner believe in is bringing different communities together. And so Hurricanes Dance is a pretty diverse team. Like I have people from Mexico, I have people from India, I have Bahamas, Canadians and Nigerians, and I find that when I started to shift back into my theater life, because I had like phases. I would be in the theater life and then it would just be strictly dance for a while. But now I'm trying to find the balance between the two. So I've been trying to bring my dancers into this theater community for those who love to sing or those who feel like they want to do just more than dance. But recently I had two of my dancers, both are from the Bahamas. They didn't feel comfortable with, actually they felt like they could not audition for the Charlottetown Festival. And when I asked them why, I was like, you're beautiful singers, why don't you want to audition? And they just felt like they didn't check the right boxes. So when I asked them to break down these boxes, they were like, okay, so there are already boxes that you have to check off when you are an artist. And when you come to an audition, there are certain things that are required of you. You need to obviously be able to hold a tune. You need to be able to do the step touch. Or if you're gonna be one of the dancers that need to backflip, you need to be able to do that. But there's just different things that you have to check off when you come to an audition. So sometimes as women of color, we feel like there are already so many boxes. So I just so happen to check off that extra box or that extra 2 boxes. So the extra box is because I'm black, you know what I mean? Like it's a show that's predominantly white. So I don't know if they're gonna hire me because I checked that extra box. Now they might check that box because they want more diversity and they want more inclusion, or it's a universal show, so it doesn't matter the color of my skin. It can be played by anyone. But then you also have those extra boxes that comes with being a black woman from a Caribbean country. Will they be able to understand that I can't really turn off my accent? Or are they going to accept the fact that they can't get that wig on my head because I got too much hair? Or are they going to accept the fact that I might not be able to fit in that costume because I'm a thick girl? You know what I mean? So you just have all these extra boxes. So these 2 dancers specifically, they hesitated to send in their video because they were like, they're not going to get hired. They already have all of this in the back of their mind. But the only way to change that is to make it, we can make it as clear as day in a post and say, we're looking for BIPOC individuals. But we need to realize our biases when it comes to shows, and we need to realize that biases can be fixed. And that's the only way that you'll make the people auditioning more comfortable, if you come to realize what your bias is and take responsibility for it. And also not to just show shows with inclusion, but to show that this show is universal. You know what I mean? And right now nobody is convinced that a show can be that, but we need to know that in 2022 that is possible. You know, it is very possible for a show to be, like a character to be played by anyone, despite the color of their skin. But we live in a time now where we feel like we have to choose that person because they're black. We have to choose this person because they're white. We have to choose this person because they're indigenous. But no, I just want to see if you can sing. Like, I could care less. I could care less. I'm not trying to say that I don't see color, because it's very important to see color. But it's also important to just see art. And it's very important just to see talent, and I think that's what the goal is right now. The goal is to know that I can audition for a show and know that someone is going to look at me and see me as a singer and a dancer, and not a black singer and a dancer, because that's not all that I am.
Yeah, I think that that's such a profound concept, that the boxes shouldn't matter, even though we know that they do, right? And I think it's hard to look at a young artist and say, the boxes should matter, and then send them into an audition where the boxes do matter to the people in the room. That's a lie, right? And so what does it look like to break down the person in the room, the boxes in the room? So I know a lot of folks are like, Evelyn is on the stage because she's a diversity, equity, inclusion consultant. No, Evelyn is on stage because she's a minor in dance. And one of the things that I was talking to Alana about is that minor in dance. And Alana says, well, you're 6'1". Like, why aren't you a dancer? And I said, well, because dancing is binary. When I go into a dance audition, I have to pick. I have to pick if I'm going to audition for male parts or audition for female parts. It really just depends on how many females are in the room. because there's 4 dudes. Guess what? I'm a male dancer today. Sure I am. Give me those tights. But the reality is, when you are adding additional characteristics to your person, and you go in and you know that someone is as streamlined as what folks are used to, it's really hard to change the palette in the room. And I use a lot of food references because I feel like for me, art is something that we consume, just like a cheeseburger or poutine. And so for me, it's how do we change the palette of the island? How do we change the understanding that things have to be one way? I know it's a lot to ask of you.
No, I think that change honestly starts with organizations giving more opportunities. It literally has to start at that. The creation of more opportunities for Black artists in all facets to kind of just like thrive and grow within our own fields.
Yeah.
I think staying up on education and technology and doing.
Yeah, Richard and I were chatting, and one of the things he said is, because you didn't say it here, so I'm just going to interject it, is the fear. It's the fear that's there. You got to get past the fear. Like, Don, the fact that your dancers were so afraid they wouldn't even try it is sad to me. What were you going to say?
I think I was just gonna, I guess, add to what Kierrah said. I think for stuff like this, it's very important to have conversations, right? Because that's where it starts from, you know. And I think putting all ego and pride aside, right? Like, I think organizations need to be aware that, okay, we're not just doing this just to say we're part of the Black Lives Matter or part of like the Black History Month. Like, we're actually doing this because we want to see change, right? So it's one thing to have the conversations and another thing to act on act on that conversation. So I feel like people need to, I think organizations and just people in general need to be aware, you know, of these things. So yeah, I'm just gonna add to that.
Right? Like, what does it look like to be culturally competent about fear? Right? And what does it look like to be culturally competent about, say, biases? Right? That does track for me. What were you gonna say? I watched it. Like, I watched your eyebrow twitch. So I was like, yes.
I was gonna say, you know, it's the conversations, and then it's also like, where can we teach people? Like, where can we train them? Where can we have places where they are comfortable to come and really learn and gain what they need to go into an audition? Like, are they prepared to go into an audition? You know, are we just throwing them to the wolves? Or, because not everybody gonna be ready. You know, like when I first moved here, I wasn't ready to go in front of nobody. My first audition with Adam, I was terrified. I went there and he was like, tell me a joke. And literally my joke was, when I moved here, I thought all the white people looked alike.
It's pretty good. Did it work?
And then So I'm like, you know, when you just gotta have some type of training. And one thing I'm gonna say about the theater performance program at Harlan College, that was a good program.
Yeah.
You know, that was a really, really good program, and it was really sad to see that go.
Yeah.
Because a lot of Bahamians were looking forward to coming to that. You know, so if we would have more programs like that one, more programs where we can prepare individuals, especially individuals of color, to go out into the world and tell them, listen, this is what to expect, and this is how to deal with that. You know, because nobody really talks to us about how to deal with the racism in this industry when you go to audition for things.
Yep.
You know, and like I agree with Darcy that we're starting to go in the right direction with PEI. But what I would love to see from PEI, because we're so inclusive and trying to be so inclusive, let's prepare artists to not only study here and work here, but let's prepare them for elsewhere. You know what I mean?
Well, and my biggest thing is, again, I go back to the deficits that we have on the stage. Not to say that you folks aren't enough, but we aren't covering all of the categories that fall under the arts. We are missing individuals who represent different backgrounds. And for me, what does it look like to train a lighting technician to light people of color? What does it look like to train our costume designers to build into waistlines and thigh lines elastic so that costumes fit different bodies? What does it look like to tell somebody to have more than one color tights? I was talking to Alana and she was telling me these stories of going to auditions, getting contracts, showing up day one, and someone handing her a pair of tights that aren't her shade. And I don't care how inclusive you are, I don't care how inclusive you are trying to be, what you just said to someone when you hand them the wrong color tights is that that space isn't for them. And for some of us, we're like, but it's just tights. We'll go to Shoppers, we'll buy another pair. You can't find a pair of brown tights at Shoppers and PEI. You can't find the right shampoo for my hair at the Shoppers and PEI, let alone the right tights. Kiki and I were talking about this when we met. It's like, I can't find what I need for my hair. How on earth, when I'm doing a show, am I supposed to have what I need for my hair?
Exactly. I literally straightened my hair. Like, I've been trying to like go natural hair, but can't go natural hair because I have to straighten it, cut the ends, because I can't cut it when it's curly, because if I cut it when it's curly, then it's gonna look crazy.
Shut up, Al.
It's really like, I really feel like that's one of the most important things, because I can't tell you how many shows I've done where they light me green.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, I literally stopped singing one time, and I was like, look at my color. Can you not see that I'm green? You know what I mean? And I just feel like, you know, he would have done better if he was trained right. So it's the training. It starts with the training. And definitely the story about the tights, like I've had that happen to me on multiple occasions. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm
when you
talking about.
auditioned. Like, this is the thing though, right? You were brown when you auditioned. It's not like you auditioned and then you showed up and they were like, oh, you're brown. Like, they know what you look like. I can't tell you how many times I showed up and the costume was built for somebody who was 5'5". I'm very much 6'1". What am I doing with those pants? Absolutely nothing. Wearing it as a shirt, I guess. But it's little things. And over time, those little things really do build up for a person. You go to an audition and you get the part and you don't have the right tights. The next audition you go to, then they don't have the right lighting. The next audition you go to and you get the part and somebody has a name for you that's really culturally insensitive. They don't think about the fact that they hired a person of color to then be this character whose name is culturally insensitive. And so it's those repeated moments where you are told that it's not for you, that now people feel like it's not for them. So when you ask the emotional labor of what can we do differently? Tiny things, little things, baby steps. You don't go from a failing student to an A+ student overnight. That's not how it works. Niyi, I see your head shaking. What are you thinking?
No, I'm just agreeing with what you're saying.
I want to open the floor for questions because I know that this conversation has been very one-sided. And I would love you to ask what you're thinking. We don't bite. And I want to open it up to you. Does anybody have a question for us?
I'll ask them. I don't think, we don't need to use the mic, I don't think,
No.
but I'm right beside the mic, so, I mean.
I did ask him to set it up, so please just use it.
So, I work in the marketing department at the center, and we're the ones putting up those posters that are like, we want BIPOC applicants, like BIPOC applicants encouraged. And I'm just wondering, like, when you see this on like a grant application or an audition form, does it actually encourage people to apply? Or is it just like, oh, they just put that because everyone's just putting that in? And I kind of, the second part of that question is, sometimes we put these applications out, we want BIPOC individuals, and then you get 10 people and there might be like one person. And you're like, crap, how do we get more BIPOC people to apply? Because we want that. So it's like, one, does it actually like mean anything to have that sentence on an application, and two, something that there's a disconnect if we're putting this out and no one is applying.
Mm-hmm.
So I open it to you to share your thoughts on that.
I think that transition, I think that's an important transition to have. until the day where somebody can put out a call and it doesn't matter who shows up. That transition though is two-sided, right? Because from my end, I would have to believe, which is on me, believe that I'll get a fair shot. And from the person who is putting that call out, they also have to understand that there might be a different feeling coming in. But I see that transition getting smaller and smaller as I get older. Those kinds of changes are coming, but there's an educational gap, and there is a gap in people of color in management positions. So as that closes, I think that necessity will also close.
Anybody else want to answer? Does anybody else want to answer?
That was perfect to me.
Yeah. I think Richard was being nice. I'm going to answer if that's okay.
Say more.
Okay, so I think it's twofold. I think, one, when you do that, it looks like tokenism, especially if you haven't done it before, okay? And then I think, secondly, it's one of those things that if it's not followed by genuine action that people can physically see, it also looks like tokenism. So when you do a poster and you say, BIPOC artists, please apply. God, please apply. What it reads as is, our funding is tied to hiring a bare minimum of 2 to 3 black people. Please apply so we can get the funding that we need. Thank you. We need the quota the same way that Hollywood does. Please, God, apply. Especially if you haven't trained your lighting director to like black people, or you haven't made sure that your costume designers know what they're doing, or you haven't ensured that the backflips that are required can be done and they look the way that they look on black bodies as they do on white bodies. Because I don't know if you know this, but black people doing backflips look very different than white people doing backflips. And it's not all Broadway. It doesn't look the same. And so what I would say is, if those posters are being put up and the work hasn't been done, that explains your numbers. Mm-hmm. And again, I think people think it needs to be, well, the posters need to be flashier. We didn't have enough red, green, and yellow. We need to do more things to articulate that we, for real, want these people. And it's not even that. It's tokenism until you take 2 steps forward, not just the first step. I think, Darcy, that's what you were kind of getting at, is you were looking for us to be a little bit more honest. I think that's step 1, for sure.
And that's the gap.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's to be closed.
Absolutely. And I think we look at race, or we look at barriers from the perspective of, oh, well, they're ahead, right? Well, in this instance, we're behind. And so what does it look like to know that we are behind and start taking actual strides to move forward? Yes?
Hi, I'm Ghislaine. I don't work at the center. It seems like everybody has been talking that they work at the center. But I do work in arts and culture. And first of all, I appreciate you all really being here. I'm learning a lot, and I appreciate that. What I really would like to hear about is, as someone who is in the white power dynamic, looking at people auditioning and when I do programming, how can I ensure that my process is the best practice for not having tokenism and really wanting to encourage everyone to bring their best to the stage? What are some things that either you, Evelyn, or the rest of the panel can teach me about how to do that better? You got this.
I know, that's why I looked at you.
See my color, but don't talk about it.
Okay.
Don't talk about it unless you need to, or don't address it unless you need to. I find that when you're an auditioner, or you're auditioning for a show and you're on this end, and then you're looking at the director from the other side, a lot of the time they make it very clear that you're brown, or they say something that draws attention to the fact that, like, you are very different compared to the other people that have been coming in here. So always just keep in mind what you're looking for, which is an artist. Mm-hmm. And as long as you keep that in mind and you make that very clear with your actions and your words, then that becomes clear for the people auditioning. You know what I mean? And that at that time and in that moment, they feel valued and they feel appreciated for what they came here to do, which is work. All I want to do is work. You know, I don't want to get the job because I'm black. I want to come here because I'm singing and I'm dancing and I'm doing all the things. So don't draw attention to it unless you absolutely need to. And that's the times that you need to does this make sense? Is when you need to. You know? Like,
It makes
don't,
sense to me.
don't draw attention to it unless it's absolutely necessary for correction or education.
Yep.
And that time will come when the person auditioning makes that clear. But until then, just focus on the work.
Yeah, I think I agree as well. I think it's important to just keep your eyes on the work, on the art itself, you know, because that is what, yeah, like if you're hiring someone to do, you know, a design for you, you're not like essentially looking for, you know, I want a white guy or a white female or whatever to do this work. I want someone who can actually do the work to do, right? So, like what she said, just focus on the work. And in doing that, I think, you know, you take little steps to get into a place where it feels more inclusive and diverse. So, yeah.
Oh, you guys are so kind. That sounds really nice, but that doesn't tell anybody how to do that. I mean, it's true. Everything you said is true. And I'm not saying that it's not true. But how do we get there? That implies that someone is in a position to see that, know that, and then get there. Kierrah?
Yeah, I think that it starts with like you have to honestly like be real with yourself, like be real with like the cultural like biases that you may or may not have. Like you have to like look into yourself, and that's not and you have to realize that and then like dismantle that, because while we're over here like trying to like work through just our walking in like being black, work like unpacking that like every single day, especially living in a place that's like 99.9998% white. Like, you know, it's the learning, like you have to dismantle like that cultural bias within yourself. Also, like don't think like to take like that, like that we have to as you're hiring us, like that you have to like learn from us. I want white people to like learn learn how to teach themselves, because that's also just another like emotional like just another like emotional trauma that I don't want to have to unpack in like the workplace, having to like teach you how to make me fit into this spot, into this position. I don't want to have to unpack that.
So this is where I'm going to chime in, because it's a lot of emotional labor when you ask somebody whose job it isn't to educate someone on something. It's not Dawn's job as a dancer to say to the lighting technician, this is how you light me. It's not Dawn's job, right? And so for me, it comes down to, yes, what Kierrah is saying is what does it look like to unpack your own biases? But really, ultimately, it's to look at your preferences. When you are looking at folks who are auditioning, and you say, this is what I prefer, my biggest thing is go a little bit deeper. Is it what you prefer? Is it really what your gut is telling you? And if so, have you calibrated your gut for your biases? And if you haven't, you're always going to do the same things. It doesn't matter what you read. It doesn't matter how much you want to do better. If you haven't asked that question and done that work, then it's not going to get you very far. And I'm a firm believer in you don't actually have to do things by yourself. Like, I understand Kierrah's like, don't ask me. There are people who get paid to do this. Like, ask them. I'm gonna shout out a theater company on the island, Kitback Theater, who has done a really good job at being like, we don't know what we're doing as far as really digging into what our biases are. How do we do that work? And they've engaged in that work. And you have to, because it doesn't matter how much you want to get past it. If you haven't calibrated your gut, what's going to happen is you're going to see a dancer and you're going to not know why, but you're not going to want to hire them. It's going to not feel right to you. And I know that a lot of people are very much tuned into what feels right. This is what I feel is right for the show. This is my preference for the show. This is my vision for the show. And at the end of the day, if you haven't done anything to tweak that, to make sure that that isn't being influenced by other things, it will always be influenced by other things. always. That's my 2 cents.
Part of that too is recognizing, like you said, recognizing that in yourself. I've been to quite a few auditions in my lifetime for different areas, crew, in front of the camera, that kind of stuff. And, you know, especially for crew, where you don't really need to send a headshot. Like with my last name being Schroeter, there's never an expectation like, oh, that's a black guy.
My name is Evelyn Ray Bradley, I completely understand.
There's the only German black guy.
Yeah.
You know, and showing up, and then you can see in someone's face sometimes,
Yep,
it's like,
absolutely.
we did not expect that, and we don't really have that job for you.
Yeah.
But you know, the way that I grew up, and kudos to my mother for teaching me this, is that you just keep going.
Yep.
And you know, and maybe this is not the time to mention it, but when we were talking, and when I was talking to Andrew too a little while ago, you know, to be part of this, I had to take a look back.
Yep.
You know, on my career path, and I tend to just keep moving forward. I've only just recently realized that I've had some modicum of success. These industries are difficult for everyone.
Yes.
It's just that there can be extra hurdles only because of melatonin.
Yeah.
And to me, that is ridiculous.
It's the visionist in you speaking, that's why you think it's ridiculous. Does anybody else have any questions? Absolutely.
So I have to use the microphone.
You do not. That's not
Okay,
the point.
thank you. First, thank you for everything you guys have shared. I've learned a lot so far. But I wanted to ask, we've heard why and how you came to PI. Have you ever gotten to a point where you wanted to leave, maybe because you got a better opportunity, or just looking for a more diverse environment, and what made you decide to stay in PI, and why are you still choosing to stay in PI? Thank you.
Although, again, I'll try to be brief. I had to leave PEI to get the education in these fields that I wanted to be in. I came back to PEI because I grew up here and I love the people here. You know, the racism that I would have felt as a child was usually behind closed doors, and sometimes it's the worst kind, right? Because to your face, people can be nice. Behind closed doors, they're trying to trip you up. But in general, the people in PEI are welcoming, and you know, there's this feeling of like people want to be inclusive. They may not know how, but they want that because all cultures make everyone better. Makes everyone better. And, you know, coming back to PEI for me, at that time with pretty much a new skill set that wasn't really prevalent here, was an opportunity for me in a way to go, you told me I couldn't do this because I was black. I've done it, but I want to give it back, right? So then it's, you know, it changed some people's minds about, maybe about me, and it changed some people's minds maybe about blackness and what can be done. Not everyone, but I don't really capitulate to everyone anyway. But it's that for me that was a start. You know, so.
Kierrah, go next.
Yes.
We literally were talking about
We just talked about this
We
yesterday.
literally just talked about this yesterday.
I was telling Evelyn that I'm this close to leaving. And I think that's due in part to my background as well. Like New York is such a diverse place. I've met so many different people from different like ethnic, cultural like backgrounds that it's not just about the diverseness that I want. I kind of like do miss like the city feel, waking up at 5 a.m. for no reason, but just to go outside because everybody is busy and has somewhere to go. But there's a part even though like I'm getting to that point where it's just like, wow, I'm like getting really close to like wanting to leave, like I just experienced, even though I experienced some like some things that have hurt me with just with the, like my like unconscious like bias and racist things that I have experienced here. It's like, although I did experience that, I know that like going to a bigger city, like and also like doing auditions, there's gonna be, it's still gonna be there. It's still going to exist because it's not just PEI, right? It's the world.
There's that quite like the misogyny in New York's music scene. I'm just gonna put that out there for everyone. There's nothing quite like the misogyny in the music scene in New York. So,
Yes.
we got that going for us, PEI. We do not have a misogynist music scene in New York.
No, not at all. So that's
Congratulations. Yeah.
yeah. That's the kind of one of the reasons why I was just like, I'm not gonna go because I am starting to build something here with like a femme-based like band that I'm like putting together like as of right now. It's one of the reasons why I don't want to go is because I know that I can start something. I can like be my own. It's easier to be my own boss here, to create something from the ground up. Because people are more willing here to come together to create one vision together. And I think that's what's so beautiful about PEI, and that's what makes me want to stay.
Yeah. Me?
Yeah. Very similar to what you said. I think the reason why I'm still in PEI is because I feel like PEI, coming into the city, or into this province, I think my idea with PEI was like, okay, this is a place where I feel like startups could thrive, where like, you know, a lot of things can be done, because to me it feels like PEI is far from a lot of things that are happening in the world right now. So I feel like, okay, it's my place to bring that here. So I feel like, you know, I'm bridging the gap with, you know, the projects that I run with, you know, my team and all that. I feel like I have something to offer to PEI. So that's why I feel like, you know, I still have a bit of work to do here. So that's what keeps me going, you know. And word travels fast on the island, like, you know. So I think this support is very, very helpful and very encouraging, you know. So compared to like bigger cities where, you know, there are a lot of more competitors and a lot of more work that you have to do, I think PEI is definitely a good place to start. So that's why I'm here.
You don't have to answer. Your face is like, I don't know how I feel.
Sure. So
I
honestly, the reason why I'm still here is because every time I try to leave, another opportunity comes out of nowhere. And it's like when I'm chilling, there's no opportunities, but as soon as I look at that ticket to go back to the Bahamas, boom, a new gig, boom, a new job. But honestly, the reason why I decided to stay in PEI is because I feel like there's a lot of work to be done. And I feel that who's gonna do it if I'm not here to do it? You know what I mean? What I'm doing right now is I'm creating a space for individuals that might never have done ballet in their life, or who don't have the training to go to certain studios here in PEI because they won't be accepted for their body type or for the type of style that they have. But I've created a space that makes them feel comfortable to dance and to perform and to feel like a performer. So, you know, I feel like the work that I've done with Hurricanes Dance and the work that me and Joe are doing with Exclusive Crew, I feel like we're creating something here that's gonna branch into something more. So I'm not ready to leave it yet, you know? I feel like I wanna keep that space open for more individuals that feel like they might not be welcome yet, because we're gonna try to get them. But if they feel like they're not welcome yet to be in different spaces and different environments, I want to make sure that this space is still here. And honestly, I'm not ready to put that in somebody else's hands yet. So
God has trust issues. Is what
you know, but hopefully, eventually, the people that are training right now, they could take over for me, and then I can move on to other endeavors. And then also, you know, now that the Confederation Centre has honestly been my dream job since I moved here. So with this new position, I ain't going nowhere because I've been wanting to be here for a while. that's also a reason why I'm staying in PEI.
Amazing.
And that's a big part of the solution is if you're not seeing those opportunities, you set up your own and bring other people in who can learn from that as well. Because if you don't find those opportunities in the institutions that are around you, they will catch up to you because of success.
I feel like this is a really great segue into Alana's video.
Question right here.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I just said the topic of vision has sort of come out from the past few questions here, and I guess like I just want to know I came to PEI 10 years ago, and I do not recognize like the place that it was till now is absolutely like it's a tectonic shift, and I would just love to know in 10 years what is your, I guess specific to the creative industries that you work in, what is the best PEI can be 10 years from now?
I'm glad I let you speak. That was good.
Well, I've been here for many decades, as we've all established. And to see, I've gotten to see firsthand new cultures coming in, and the different things that brings to the island. I think, and I'll say this, I mean, I've said this for many, many, many years, is that PEI has a huge amount of talent here. Huge amount of talent. And, when it comes to, say, TV and film, I mean, we have everything except for mountains. And, technology is there to put those in if we need them. It's, there's other factors like, people keep things very close to the chest and that kind of thing. Sometimes collaboration doesn't happen, but I think there is going to be, even in my lifetime, I plan to live for another 100 years, that I will be able to see more and more and more of a coming together, right? Because I've seen that happen. Now, it feels like there's a long way to go. And there is, in the big scheme of things. But in the smaller scheme of things, I think, once again, and I tap this all the time because it's worked for me, education will help catch everyone up, and people will be able to move forward from there.
Me. Yeah. My bad. I think that in 10 years, I would like to see a PEI. Oh man, that's a good question. I want to see a place that, honestly, that if there's a Broadway production going on here, I would love to see an inclusive cast. I want to see that. I want to see more artists at the main stage who are BIPOC musicians. I want to see some food places pop up that are culturally what I would see back at home. I want to see my foundation color. I want to see tights my color as well. I want to see a lot of things.
I want to hear you on the radio.
I would love a radio station.
I would love to hear you on the radio, personally. I would love to hear you on the radio, personally. I'd love to hear local artists on the radio. Hint, hint. Me?
Yeah, we'd love to hear our songs on the radio here.
I think for me, mainly, what I want to see, I guess, in the next 10 years in the art spaces, I guess a platform that encourages people to, to stay, artists to come to the island and they're able to stay and make a living, and more opportunities are being provided for them, to explore and try different things, So I think mainly that's what I would want to see in the next 10 years for PEI.
It's 10 years from now, dance time.
I
I want to see more diversity in the dance studios. You know, I want to see studios coming together to create something beautiful, because it's not all competition. You know, 10 years from now, I'd love to see all local dancers come on the main stage and put on a show. That would be really lovely to see that we have talent right here in PEI. I want to see more Black writers for shows. I want to see more diverse casts for shows. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be the shows that have already been done. It can be new shows. We could do new shows. We can dip our toe in some new things, you know? So that's what I would love to see 10 years from now. And I want to see different body types on stage. I want to see different backgrounds on stage. And I think that's where we should try to move towards, just trying to see something different from what we've seen for the last 75 years. You know? No offense.
I caused this problem, and I'm very sorry.
I'll add to that as well. Just the, you know, it may not sound like a positive spin, but it would be nice to go out for something and fail at it because I suck.
Yep.
Not because
Yes.
I was colored.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not on the panel, just to also help answer this question. In 10 years, I think the easiest way some examples I can give is, for example, this conversation. We're having this in February. In 10 years, this conversation should be able to happen at any other time of the year. And also, this tenseness you feel in the room where everyone is on the edge, that shouldn't be here. Essentially, I'm saying there should be a shift in mindset where, as you mentioned, we don't see color, but we see individuals. That's so now you're going from structural things to just human beings and how we think, how we view each other. So that's I think what everyone said is the biggest thing. Where again, this tenseness it should be at least, if not gone, almost gone. Where it should be comfortable.
I love that. Was everybody able to hear what the gentleman in the front said? Good, because I think you're right. I think that what does it look like to have this conversation, not in February, what does it look like to have this conversation without people being nervous that we're going to tell them that they're terrible? What does it look like to have this conversation in a way that doesn't feel threatening and doesn't seem aggressive? What does it look like? I think this, I'm going to pause for just a second because I think this is a great time to actually play Alana's video because she covers all of these concepts that we just kind of talked about, and I think it'll be a nice way to kind of wrap up the conversation this evening.
Hello everyone, my name is Alana Hibbert and I am a member of the acting company with the 2022 Charlottetown Festival at the Confederation Centre. Happy Black History Month. Thank you to the Confederation Centre for putting together this session. I've been asked to speak a little bit about my time with the festival and my experiences as a Black artist working in theatre. My history with the festival goes back 15 years to 2008 when I came to Charlottetown for my first season when I was performing in Anne of Green Gables and the British Invasion to America Strikes Back. And since then, I've been back to the festival 5 more times for shows like Hairspray, The Buddy Holly Story, and Kronberg and Atlantic Blue. And I'll be there this summer doing Anne and The Telltale Harbor. When I was initially going through my history with the festival prior to this recording, Evelyn said to me, Alana, you've been in like a part-time committed relationship with this place. And that's actually quite accurate. It's a quite accurate way of putting it. I currently live on the opposite coast in Vancouver, but I certainly hold a special spot for Charlottetown, which has been my summer home for several seasons. One of the questions that Evelyn posed to me was, how can the Centre better support Black artists? And this is a huge and complex question. And I think that the theatre industry in Canada has really found itself to be in the midst of a bit of a reckoning as stories of Black and Brown artists working in a lot of Canada's theatrical institutions have started to gain a little bit more attention and visibility in and amongst the people who are working in theatre. And over the last 2 years, I will say I've been invited to quite a few different panels and discussions, conversations about how to meet the need for creating greater equity and inclusive practices within artistic spaces. And suggestions are often thrown out, put forward about the sort of concrete measures that can be taken, such as having the correct color of tights or options for colors for tights, having culturally specific wigs, makeup, on-stage lighting that takes into account dark skin tones. These have all sort of been put forward as really basic things that can be done to help make visiting artists of color feel more considered. Of course, these are sort of small things that exist amongst a broader conversation that I hope is currently happening, across Canada within theaters about things like institutional power and privilege and how these things work in Canadian theater institutions. I worked on a show last year at a different festival that introduced pre-rehearsal orientation days prior to even cracking open the script. We met with a DEI specialist who was brought in to work with the cast and with the crew, the orchestra, the artistic team. Everybody gathered prior to rehearsal. Theater leadership was also there to engage in conversations about how power works in rehearsal processes. And so it allowed space, for example, I was able to talk about my experiences working as a Black artist and how that experience might be different from someone else's who's operating within the same rehearsal space. And I thought this was an interesting exercise for me anyways of it didn't level the playing field, or I don't know if it's about that, but it does sort of create a shared environment and a shared starting point for a group of people who are all walking into a space, coming into a place with different histories and different experiences. It created just a nice sort of shared starting point. I also think, sort of along with that too, it's really important to continue to invest in and develop talent both on and off the stage. Qualified and talented Black people exist, many on the island currently, and many who would be willing to come to the island to contribute their talents and their perspectives and their passion for the work of theater making. So this gets to the next question that Evelyn posed to me, which was, what advice would I have for young Black artists on PEI? And this overlaps with something that I think is important and has been important for me throughout my career so far, which is the importance of mentorship and strengthening relationships between Black artists who are more established and working professionally and those who are just starting out. Finding that community for me has been really important. Having people that I can look to and talk to and collaborate with and commiserate with, who have had similar experiences to mine, has been vital for my career, but also for my own mental health. And my advice for young Black artists on PEI is to be in touch, to get in touch